today's video, I am going to attempt a Football Manager challenge that I actually think is impossible. I will be trying to go from being unemployed with 0 qualifications to winning the Champions League in under 24 hours. So I loaded up FM24 and created my manager with no badges and no previous experience, and will fight against the clock to lift the Champions League trophy. This save is simple. It's a journeyman, but with a restricted timescale. I have to work my way up from club to club to club, gaining qualifications, gaining reputation, with the ultimate goal of lifting European football's top prize. To do this, I added in every single playable league in Europe to give me the best chance of landing a gig ASAP. So I started the game, and our countdown timer began. The first thing I did was apply for every current vacancy and cross my fingers and hope for the best. Obviously, I faced several rejections right off the bat, but some interviews started to roll in, with us taking job interviews at NK Solin in Croatia, Amora in Portugal, and even in Belarus, before receiving interviews closer to home in Wales. And then we received our first offer, Trefellyn BGC, from the Welsh second tier. I wasn't overly happy with this one, so I delayed the job for a week and continued my search. However, the days continued to tick past and no other opportunities were coming up, so I eventually buckled and took my talents to Wales to start this journey. It took me 24 minutes in-game to actually find this job and get the opportunity offered to me, so I didn't want to waste any more time. We had to take this job and start our journey. So our story begins at Trefellyn BGC, a tiny club based in Port Talbot, South Wales. The BGC actually stands for Boys and Girls Club, and the team was established in 1984. The team play in Welsh football's second tier, which is the 183rd best league in Europe, putting it below the regional leagues in England and one place higher than the Azerbaijan 3rd division. So you know, this is quite far away from where I want to be come the end of the challenge. Looking at the team, you will be able to see some fantastic star ratings, but if you dive a little deeper and look at our best player, you can see some of the problems we'd be facing starting this low down. The team actually kicked off the season with a 2-0 defeat at home, but are actually predicted to finish outside of the division's relegation zone. And rather than just going on holiday and simulating through this entire thing, I will be using the Tato Skins instant result button so that I can manage things on a day-to-day, and more importantly, we actually have a record to look back at come the end of this video. Our first game in management was away to Britain Ferry in the Welsh League Cup, and we managed to pick up a win with our only shot on target as Jordan Davies scored a David Beckham-esque free kick, and we were off to the races. Flash forward to the end of the season, and we'd done the almost impossible and won the league on goal difference despite losing 1-0 on the final day of the season. Which means we have secured our first league title of this save, but it is the Welsh second tier, so I'm hoping that isn't going to be the only one that we're going to get in this video. We even managed to make it a league and cup double as we scooped the Welsh Blood Service League Cup with a 1-0 victory in the final. So we had a league and a cup trophy to the CV inside our first season, along with a 71% win ratio and the Manager of the Year award to my name. During the season, I was even able to snag my National C license, leaving it just 6 more until I reached the top qualification in football. However, to start with, the club actually rejected me going on my National B license because they were worried about me leaving the club. And ultimately, that's kind of where my head was at. If they weren't going to pay for my qualifications, I knew my time in Wales was going to come to an end pretty quickly. At the end of the season, there were 38 managers' jobs in total, ranging all the way from Chelsea into the Premier League, down to Corsica in the Slovenian second division. So I applied for the ones that I thought I'd have a chance for and started smashing the spacebar to advance through the days, but sadly, there were no takers. Meaning that we will have another season in South Wales with that timer constantly ticking down against me. So with over 3 hours of the challenge played now, I was still in South Wales, which was not great, but at least we were in the Welsh Premier League now. I raced against the clock over the summer period to sign 21 players to the team to enable us to take the step up, and it feels like we have some decent balance in our squad. However, we are expected to be the league's whipping boys with title odds of 500 to 1. But after coming to terms with the fact that I was going to be in Wales for another full season to improve my reputation, I got to work. Our Welsh Premier League debut was rough, conceding a goal in the 94th minute to lose on the road to Bala Town, but to my surprise we did start getting things back on track and climbing back up the league, all whilst taking our medicine in a 4-1 loss to the New Saints, the only professional team in our league. And the save has its first club legend, as summer signing Jack Wilson was a star for us this campaign, scoring 19 goals for us in all competitions. But I'm sorry Jack, I hope that you are not the best striker that I work with during this challenge. Off the field, the club finally allowed me to advance and started taking my National B licence, which now means my manager looks like this from an attribute standpoint. Their faith in me was down to performances on the pitch, because we were a surprise powerhouse in the Welsh Premier League, finishing the season in a very impressive 2nd place, albeit a massive 22 points behind TNS, who won the title at a canter. But that did mean next season we would have been in the Europa Conference League qualification if I were to stay in Wales. We also had some successes in the 24-25 season as we lifted the Welsh League Cup after a tense penalty shootout. So season 2 was a huge success for me, but I felt like the time was right to move on and look for a new opportunity elsewhere. After 2 seasons and over 5 hours in this challenge, this is what our manager was looking like in game, which I'm aware isn't fantastic. But we do have a 68% win ratio in all competitions, and now a National C licence. And the most important thing of all, a 1-star reputation. But now it was time for me to say goodbye to Wales, so I headed to the job centre looking for pastures new. I hit apply on all of the vacancies, and the waiting game began. As we were waiting for responses from other clubs, I completed my National B licence, and Trefellyn were gracious enough for me to pay for my National A licence, which would take me 4 months to complete. So the club were completely unaware of my intention to leave them at this point, but it was a fantastic gesture and I was hoping it was going to be a really nice parting gift. Or so I thought, as rejections were coming in thick and fast as I was advancing through the summer until I finally got my first job interview. On the 25th of June, I was approached by Croatian 2nd tier side Dugopalje for an interview. I addressed their concerns regarding speaking the language and guaranteed them results on the pitch. Then just 4 days later, they came back in with an offer for me to become their new manager. That offer contained no transfer budget, and we were expecting a top half finish in the Croatian 2nd tier. So this wasn't the most appealing option, but I didn't want to do 3 years in Wales. Dugopalje are a professional club in Croatia based on the outskirts of Split. And compared to where I was in Wales, this club has a lot going for it. They're professional, they have a nice little stadium, and most importantly, they play in a league that's ranked just outside the top 50 leagues within Europe. And if somehow we could fluke a promotion to the Croatian top flight, we'd be playing within a league just outside the top 20. So we had to be successful on the pitch. Looking at the squad, we have a strong Croatian core with some Brazilian flair thrown in on the left wing. Our best player is a 25-year-old midfielder, Filip Kosic, who looks like a good player for this level. We will be carrying over the tactic we deployed in Wales, and the team actually looks pretty well balanced going into the season. We're predicted to finish 8th in the league going into the campaign, but we still have 41 days until the season starts, so let's get busy in that transfer window. So it took me 30 minutes of in-game time to actually get to the start of the season, all whilst trying to wheel and deal and bring in players with zero transfer budget. I managed to sign 7 players on free transfers to bolster our options, but many of them came from outside the EU. And on closer inspection of the league's rules, I can only name 3 of them in a matchday squad. So make sure you're reading your league's rules when you join a country that you are not familiar with and you don't get caught out just like I did. However, those signings have improved our title odds massively, as the bookies have us as the 3rd best team in the league. But considering only one side gets promoted in this division, is still going to be a tough ask. We started the season with results fluctuating, but this is to be expected when arriving at a new club and all of the signings over the summer. But from September onwards, we settled into a much more consistent pattern of form and even pushed Dinamo Zagreb, the best team in the country, all the way in the quarterfinals of the Cup to close out 2025. There was a mid-season break in Croatia, so I packed that time with easy friendly matches so we can continue where we left off, and the team did just that. As we moved into 2026, we only dropped 9 points in the league from 16 matches to secure the league title by just 3 points and see the club promoted to the country's top division. Off the field, I managed to convince the club to pay for my Continental C license. But considering the club only gave me a transfer budget of 35k to work with over the summer, I thought, maybe I'll try my hand in the job centre, in the job market, and see if there were any takers for a man with my such skill set. At the time, there were 55 managerial jobs out there, so naturally, I hit apply all and waited for my next opportunity. And I'm sure at this point, when you've come back to me, you're expecting me to say, I'm at my third club, we're all moving well, things are going great, right? Not so much. Out of all of those jobs I applied for, only FC Cherkasy in Ukraine offered me the chance for an interview. And considering where they are in the world of football, I politely declined and focused my mind on tackling the Croatian top flight. And with a better grasp of actually what I needed to do in Croatia and the league rules and stuff like that, I was actually able to build a really nice team over the summer. I signed 8 players over the summer and they were all Croatian. The best of them was midfielder Mario Chuic, who came through the Hajduk Split Academy. As you can see, there was much more of a homegrown flavour to the squad, but that still didn't help us when you looked at the season preview. The media gave us odds of 800 to 1 to win the title, and we were predicted to finish rock bottom of the league. But I actually saw this as a true marker and an actual challenge that I could add to my CV. Imagine if I were able to keep a team like this in the division, we would tick that box of being a relegation candidate survivor, which could help me further down this challenge. The start to our season was well above all expectations. We won 4 of our opening 5 games before losing at home to Hajduk Split. And considering some of the differences between the club's annual salaries, I'm happy with our overall performances against some of the bigger sides in the league. We made it to the quarterfinals of the Croatian Cup for a second season in a row, but it was yet another defeat at home, again to Dinamo Zagreb. We then played them just 3 days later in the league, and they beat us again, just for good measure. In the second half of the campaign, we were dialed in, beating a majority of the sides but still suffering defeats against the big boys. However, the season ended poorly for us, only picking up 1 point from our final 4 games of the season. But as you can tell, for a club like this, we still definitely punch well above our weight. So much so that we guided the club to a 3rd place finish in the league and a Europa Conference League qualification spot. This was largely down to striker Ibrahim Kagbo, who secured himself the league golden boot with 23 goals in 32 appearances, and he is now wanted by 15 clubs at the end of his contract. However, we are almost halfway through this time challenge and I'm not even in the Champions League, let alone anywhere near a Champions League final, so I need to get moving. I decided that it was time to leave Croatia, and thanks to Dugopolji, I secured my Continental C license and made a start on my Continental B, which I'd complete in just 2 months' time. But right now, my manager wasn't looking exceptional from an attributes perspective. I have a 2.5-star reputation and a 63% win ratio through 155 games. One major positive of coming to Croatia though has been the fact that my manager is now fluent in several languages, which I'm hoping will enable me to connect with players in the future. However, the time came to apply for several jobs throughout Europe. Clubs in England such as Bolton, Cardiff, Yuck, and Lincoln all offer me job interviews, but I wasn't ready to return to England just yet. I had an interview at Wisła Polok in the Polish top flight, and they went on to offer me the job. I even had an interview at Casa Pia in the Portuguese top flight, but considering they'd just been relegated, I decided against it. Then an interesting opportunity came up as AIK in Sweden approached me to be their new manager. And this was a very interesting proposition for me because not only are AIK one of the most successful clubs in Swedish football, their season runs at a very different time to everybody else's. It runs from April through to November. Granted, the table makes for grim reading for AIK fans at the bottom of the table with just 5 points from 11 games, but I was thirsty to get straight into the matches and save this club. So when the offer came in, I signed on the dotted line and made the trip to Zlatan country. AIK is one of Sweden's biggest and most successful clubs, with a rich history dating back to 1891. Based in Solna, just outside Stockholm, the club have won the league title 12 times in their history and have a fantastic looking stadium. But for me, there is so much more than meets the eye with this club. Not only do they have great facilities for this level, but they have money in the bank and no debts, which should allow me to progress personally, all whilst trying to get them back to winning ways on the pitch. The squad itself shouldn't be in the position that it's in, as there are several talented players in key areas. According to my staff, my best player is Rui Modesto, who can play anywhere on the right hand side, but it seems like he will be leaving us at the end of the season on a free transfer. However, it's the under-19s where this club is littered with gems, as I have 7 5-star prospects to bring through into the first team. But considering it's July and the year is 2027, we are in the middle of a summer transfer window, and that is open in the middle of the season in Sweden. So we can strengthen this team if we can. So let's get to work. In the summer window, I got busy clearing out some of the players that I didn't think could take us back to where we needed to be at this club, or was bringing in a couple of nice players to make us better. As he was leaving us at the end of the season, I sold Rui Modesto to Anderlecht for £1.9 million, along with sales of Jetmir Haliti, Brian Ketchermacher and Eduardo Soleri, as we made a total of £3.9 million in that window. I used some of those funds on wages as I picked up Uriel Celli and Michael Cuisance on free transfers. I did splash a bit of cash to sign us a new striker, as new-gen Eduardo Miguel swapped Argentina for Sweden to be our new centre forward. And considering he bagged 5 goals in his first 8 appearances, I'll chalk that off as a good start. Our time at AIK started brilliantly, winning 4 of our opening 5 games, only suffering defeat away on the road to Hammarby. But to be honest, I didn't really do much here. This team really didn't deserve to be at the bottom of the table. Our form fell off a cliff towards the end of the season, but I'd done enough to comfortably save this team from the drop, finishing 7th in the table, but only 11 points off the team that won the title. So I was at the end of the season in Sweden in November, but given the time of the year, there wasn't an abundance of jobs anywhere else. Key opportunities that stood out at the time were Wolves, Nantes, Freiburg and Athletic Bilbao. But I felt if I stayed in Sweden for another season, I could move to a bigger opportunity at this time next year. Plus, considering the club instantly agreed to pay for my Continental A license as soon as I could apply for it, I felt like I owed them something. I was pretty ruthless in this window, with 8 players being shown the exit door, as I was able to stockpile another £3.6 million. I used the majority of that to sign 3 players, with a goal of taking us back to the top. We signed Peru international Elson Correa to play in our midfield, new-gen goalkeeper Mads Bregaard, and new-gen winger Nuno Silva from Portugal. And to play on the other wing, we picked up Brazilian Denner on a free transfer. So now the squad was flooded with South American flair, and we were ready to attack the campaign. During pre-season, we also managed to make our way to the Swedish Cup final, which would be played later on in the year. But this is our first real chance to secure an actual major top flight trophy in this challenge. We are third favourites to win the league title this season, but striker Eduardo Miguel is in the media dream 11. I knew we would be a handful for teams at this level. Let's first talk about that Swedish Cup final where we took on BK Häcken. I was pretty nervous going into this one, but we opened the scoring inside the first 30 minutes. Hacken did pull level on the half-hour mark, but then we took control of the game, running out with a 5-2 win at the end of the day to see us lift our first top flight trophy as manager. But naturally, due to instant results in the game to save time, I didn't see a trophy lift, so it kind of feels a little hollow and I'm a little bit sad inside. Our start to the league campaign was excellent, and thanks to the cup win we ended up in the Europa League qualification path, which is actually our European debut despite getting 2 clubs into the qualifiers for the Europa Conference League in previous seasons. We had positive results the whole way through, knocking out teams from Poland, Greece and Croatia before sending Panathinaikos home over 2 legs in the final playoff tie. We actually won 3 of our 5 games in the Europa League phase, so see the club currently 13th in that table. In the summer window I added 3 more players to the squad, including former Chelsea youngster Carney Chuamenka on a free transfer and South African left-back Soyobonga Pule from Cape Town City for 475k. The gambles I made on new gens paid off for us, as Nuno Silva was sensational on the wing and he is now playing for Portugal's under-21s, and Eduardo Miguel bagged 25 goals for us all season and is now wanted by 16 different clubs across Europe. But I'd be lying to you if I didn't say throughout this whole season I was keeping my eye firmly on that job centre. I even attended an interview at Spanish side Girona in October, but they didn't want me. So I finished the season strong. Wins were pretty easy to come by for this AIK side, so much so that the club secured its 13th league title, cruising to top spot 14 points clear of the team in second. This season also saw me bag my Continental A licence and make a start on my Continental Pro licence, which is actually the highest tier I can actually get and the last one that I can achieve. And my manager profile is starting to show signs of a manager that is capable of stepping into a bigger job, especially now I've got 2 bigger trophies under my belt in Sweden, along with a solid performance in the Europa League. And more importantly than anything else at this time in the save, I wanted to move back to more of a normal European schedule, kind of in line with the rest of football. But none of the jobs on offer were screaming my name, so I needed to sit tight and wait for the right opportunity to present itself. Premier League side Brentford were the first club to flinch. We took an interview there and were even offered the job. Next was 2-time European champions Nottingham Forest, who just fired boss Andy Reid. Again, I interviewed for the role and even had a second job offer come through. And then there were some interesting European opportunities. First up was the Monaco job, and I completed the interview again and waited. Second was the Hertha Berlin job, and we had another job interview and we waited some more. And then eventually, offers came in for all 4 clubs. So at this point, I want you guys to tell me down in the comments who you would have joined: Brentford, Nottingham Forest, Monaco, or Hertha Berlin. So for our 4th club in this challenge, we decided to join Monaco, and once we arrived in the south of France, we replaced another Englishman after Will Still was sacked after a 1.5 years as manager. And when you look at the club's recent form, you can see why they made that decision. The club had lost their last 4 games in Liga, all whilst failing to impress in the Europa Conference League. The squad itself still has several faces Monaco will know, such as Wilfried Singo, Balogun and Youssouf Fofana. But the jewel in the crown is wonder kid Elise Ben Sakhir, who is a wonderful player now 23 years of age, but he does want to leave us for a better club. We will be bringing the 4-3-3 tactic with us to Monaco, but the issues in this team are clear for us all to see. Our goalkeeper sucks. But we are about to move into January 2029 and several players want to leave the club, so I'm sure we can top up that transfer budget a little bit and try and push Monaco back up into the top 4 and secure Champions League qualification. My first game in charge of Monaco wasn't a classic, as we were dumped out of the Coupe de France in the 9th round by Sochaux on penalties, but this did give me an idea. As soon as January hit, I dipped into the transfer market to sign their goalkeeper Gregory Bernard, a young French goalkeeper who has a 5-star potential and improves us massively between the sticks. he cost us £7.5 million. Luckily, I was able to space this out through installments because we were actually able to keep the rest of the squad together. We only had 2 league fixtures in January, which allowed the squad to learn the tactic, and towards the end of the month it paid off as we managed to win our games whilst looking very convincing. This was largely down to goals from Balogun, who looked like a different player in this system as he fired us to an impressive away win at Lyon. It was clear that this team was capable of more as the months went by, picking up wins like they were going out of style. We even managed to beat PSG on the road thanks to a late goal from Armando Broja. Despite all of the green in our schedule, we were already too far behind the pack to ultimately achieve that Champions League qualification that I was after. We did manage to finish the season 6th with 57 points as Nice were crowned champions, putting an end to PSG's 7-season reign in France. But at least this shows that another team can win in France, it's not just a PSG fest. Balogun was the club's top goal scorer, but he wants to leave the club for a stronger squad, and Leicester and Benfica are both interested in him. Alexander Golovin was also amazing for us this season, but it seems like Saudi will come calling for him over the summer. Which is just as well, because we've been given a summer transfer budget of £4 million to turn this team into a Champions League club. However, I do have to say I now do have some full-on European pedigree. We powered through the likes of Aberdeen, Borussia Mönchengladbach and Standard Liège to make our way through to the Conference League final. It was Italian opposition in the face of Atalanta in this final, and the game started like a house on fire with 3 goals inside the first 10 minutes. But with a 2-1 lead in the game, Atalanta centre-back Alessandro Bongiorno received a straight red card for a horror challenge on Balogun, and we were handed a massive opportunity. With the additional man advantage, we started to turn the screw, with our midfield players able to dominate, with Renato Sanchez scoring a brace and a winning goal being added by Ben Sahir. So the Conference League is my 7th trophy in this journey so far, but it's the one that carries the most weight and proves we can do it on a European stage. But this is going to be the biggest summer window of this challenge so far because I am rapidly running out of time. Moving into the 29-30 season, we said goodbye to our Conference League final hero Renato Sanchez. League champions Nice came in and offered me £25.5 million for his services, and club legend Alexander Golovin did make his move to Saudi Arabia for another £7.5 million. So we had over £30 million come in, but I wasn't able to keep all of that unfortunately, so I had to crack out my Wonder Kid finder and really improve this team. First on the hit list was Estonian striker Tavi Kolk, who only cost us £2.5 million. Next, it was Hungarian international forward Gabriela Dejanova, who cost us £4.2 million. And then to complete the squad building, I was reunited with my man Siobonga Pule, who I signed from former club AIK to take our spot at left back. Yes, I've developed an attachment to him. Who doesn't love a South African new gen? So this is how the team was looking going into our first full season as Monaco manager, and it's safe to say we don't have a lot of depth, and we have several young players in the team. We've got 3 competitions on the schedule this season, but we need to make it into the Champions League this year. We're expected to finish 6th according to the media prediction, but I need more, or maybe one final move. We had an inconsistent start to the season, beating the teams that we should in France, but losing to teams like champions Nice and PSG. We didn't exactly set the world alight in our Europa League fixtures, but only suffered a single defeat at Stamford Bridge against Chelsea. In October, we completed our Continental Pro license, meaning there are no more qualifications left for me to achieve in the game. As January hit, our Coupe de France journey begun, and we managed to progress comfortably without really getting out of second gear. But in the mid-season transfer window, I received an offer for one of my players, which I thought was too good for me to refuse. Inter Milan came in and signed Balogun from us for a whopping £40 million after starting the season well, bagging 11 goals in 16 games in Ligue 1. However, that injection of funds allowed me to go shopping and strengthen all over the pitch. I spent over £26 million in that window, bringing in Francisco Andrade from Fiorentina, Juan Soriano from Tenerife, Ayman Abdul Samad from Copenhagen, and Lorenzo Montipo from Verona. Because, you know, this is when the game was having troubles with goalkeeper injuries. But those additions did give us massive depth options, which actually allowed us to fight better on different fronts going throughout the rest of the season. Domestically, we struggled to really make up huge ground, losing silly games on the road despite impressive form at home all campaign. This season also saw the resurgence of PSG under new manager Diego Simeone, and they roared back to win the title, with us finishing in second, a huge 21 points behind them. They only lost once all season, which happened when we played them at the Stade Louis. Unlike my first season at the club, we had a good performance in the French Cup. We managed to defeat Guingamp in the quarter-finals with goals from Ian Matson and Mohamed Salisu. Rennes were the team in our way at the semi-final stage, and luckily we were at home for this game, as I feel like we would have lost it on the road. Tavi Kolk and Nicolas Iribarren fired us into the final, where we'd face who else but PSG. But we'd actually split the results in Liga this season, so at a neutral venue, I kind of thought that we could maybe cause an upset. And thanks to Elise Ben Sekir's first half strike, we were able to do just that and win Monaco's first French Cup for 38 years. But I wasn't done there this season. We didn't make it into the top 8 of the Europa League, but we still managed to qualify regardless and had to face Greek side Olympiakos in the playoff round. They didn't put up much of a fight, and we progressed with a 3-1 win on aggregate. We then hammered Athletic Bilbao over 2 legs to move into the quarter-finals. We had to face Chelsea here, and that was actually a side that did beat us in the league phase. But we were a different animal now and shared a 2-2 draw at the bridge before snagging a 3-2 win in France, with Tavi Kolk bagging a nice brace. It was Juventus in the semi-finals, and we again showed great strength, winning the first leg at home 2-1. But in Turin, Amadou Onana pulled Juve level, and the game went into extra time. We battered the Italian side, but couldn't find a way past their goalkeeper until Gabriella Deanova was hacked down inside the box, giving us a huge chance from the spot. Armando Broja, on as a substitute, steadied himself and snuck the ball past the keeper in the Juve goal to send us into the final. 2 minutes later, he did have another penalty to actually let my heart settle, but this time he went for the dink down the middle and the keeper saved it. I am so glad that he managed to score the first one before missing the second one, because if things were the other way around, I think I probably would have exploded with rage at his Panenka attempt. We had to take on German side RB Leipzig in the final, and the goals were flying in this one for both sides. Leipzig scored 2 goals in 2 minutes before half-time, but Tavi Kolk bagged us a lifeline just before the end of the half. Facundo Torres then extended the German side's lead from the spot in the second half, but just 60 seconds later, Deanova reduced that deficit back to a single goal. Then up steps the big man yet again. On as a sub for a second game in a row, Armando Broja again came in with a chance to level things from the spot, and this time he sent the keeper the wrong way to make things square at 3-3. I thought the game was destined for extra time until Ben Sekir's shot from inside the box was saved by Van der Voort and fell into the path of Broja, who tapped the ball into the net with the goalkeeper on the floor. Then in the 90th minute, Yusuf Fofana gave me a heart attack as he was shown a straight red card for a poorly timed challenge on the Leipzig striker. But we somehow managed to weather the storm in injury time and hold on to win the Coupe de France and a Europa League double. Those wins really enhanced my manager profile along with the Continental Pro license, but there wasn't really any jobs that I liked the look of in Europe just yet. So it was time to buckle down, stay in France and try and take on PSG, all whilst finally making my Champions League debut. I wasted little time powering through the summer, and we even won another trophy on the way. We had the European/South American Club Challenge, where we dispatched Argentinian side Talleres with ease, as you would expect. Transfers were few and far between, as we did say goodbye to Mohamed Salisu, who headed to Al Ahly for £25 million. I used that money to sign a new right-back in Hans-Jörg Steinmetz from Stuttgart for £16 million to give us a more dynamic option on that right-hand side. The team is looking good going into the season, but I do have Pau Torres and Tian Koopmeiners on trial at the club right now after their contracts came to an end in Saudi Arabia. But I don't actually think I'm going to have the financial muscle to sign either of them despite me trying. We have lots to play for this season as we enter the Champions League for the first time in 8 seasons, and we will play Real Madrid in the UEFA Super Cup as last season's Europa League winners. However, according to the media, Ligue 1 is still PSG's to lose, and I'm rapidly running out of time in this challenge. So here we are with time rapidly running out in this challenge, but it is season number 8 in under 24 hours, and this one is a absolute banger of a campaign. As French Cup winners last season, we opened the year with a Trophée de Champion taking on last year's league winners PSG. We twice took the lead in this one, but considering this save was done on the regular database, Kylian Mbappe is still at PSG, and he twice pulled the Parisians level. But in the 83rd minute we took the lead for the 3rd time, and even Mbappe couldn't stop us lifting the first trophy of the year. And this was a big statement of intent for me because we beat PSG in the cup final last season, firmly cementing that that win wasn't a fluke. However, the UEFA Super Cup will prove that there are still some room for improvement, as Real Madrid came from a goal down to win the trophy and prevent us going 2 from 2 to start the year. In Liga this year, we were absolutely outstanding, only losing 2 games all season on the road to Rennes and at home to PSG. However, the fixture list was littered with draws, which saw PSG beat us to the title for a 2nd season in a row, as they only dropped 8 points all year. Our defence of the French Cup was pretty successful, as we didn't face a real challenge until we got to the final, where we had to take on Nice. They took the lead in this one early on, but it looked like we were going to suffer a narrow defeat until Chiquinho pulled us level in the 94th minute. Extra time came and went in a flash, so this one had to be settled via penalty shootout. We remained calm, slotting spot kicks until Ardon Jashari hit the post for Nice. We were then able to keep our calm and continue to score our penalties to lift the Coupe de France for a 2nd season in a row. This season was my managerial debut in the Champions League, and we showed that we are capable of good things in this competition and progressed through the league phase nicely. We had to take on Turkish giants Galatasaray in the playoff round, and after a goalless draw in Istanbul, we were able to progress comfortably back at home. It was Benfica up next in the round of 16, and thanks to 2 2-1 wins in both legs, we advanced with Tavi Kolk running the show. So we made it into the quarter-finals, where we were handed a tie against Manchester United. We were at home in the first leg and took the lead early on, but United rallied in the second half with goals from Sotolo and Marcus Rashford. And I don't know about you, but I still can't get used to seeing him in an Aston Villa shirt. In the return leg at Old Trafford, we pulled things level as Ian Maatsen scored from the spot early, but for a 2nd game in a row, United rallied and scored on the stroke of half-time through Garnacho and cemented the win late on with 2 further goals. So we're 22 hours into this challenge, and this is how my manager is looking. 361 games played and a 66% win ratio. We have a 4.5-star reputation now, and the eagle-eyed of you will notice that I'm a wanted man. At the end of the season, there were 4 jobs in Europe, one of them being the United job. So I took a look at the job advert and applied. The interview was offered to me the following day, and then came the job offer. So let's have one final move to see what we can do. The first thing I noticed upon my arrival at Old Trafford was the massive step up in player ability. This squad was stacked with a blend of real players such as Alejandro Garnacho, Nathan Patterson, and of course Marcus Rashford. But there were also players like new-gen DeAndre Green here absolutely dominating. The club still had over £500 million worth of debt in this universe, but ultimately, I don't care. We need to get moving. The reason United sacked their manager was because they finished the season in 7th last time out, meaning they'd be in the Europa League this season. And that's probably something I should have checked before taking the job, because that ultimately means I've not got long left and I'm not even in the Champions League this season. But I'm going to mash through the summer, get through this season, and hopefully have some time left at the end. But I think I'm going to be up against it here. I had to move quickly over the summer, and we said goodbye to 6 players, which saw me make £104 million in this window. The highest profile of those being new-gen Ben Wagstaff, who I stole to Chelsea for £49 million. And yes, I know he looks good, and I'm sure you're curious as to why I sold him. You'll find your answer very, very shortly. I only made 3 signings of my own over the summer as we signed Japanese international Yuzuki Komatsuzaki for £24 million, which is an absolute bargain in my book. Then I signed fullback Michael Sharon from Rennes for £104 million as he's a natural on both sides of the pitch and I needed utility this year, and yes, it was done via installments. And finally, we have my striker replacement as I signed Stalin Esbalza from Benfica for £48 million. He's a player that I've had my eye on for a couple of seasons in this universe. I've never had enough money to sign him, and finally, I've got my hands on him. So here is the team going into the campaign, and I can't believe I'm going into the season with Mason Mount in my midfield in 2031. But here we are. We are third favourites for the title, but my goal is to get through the season as quickly as possible, so let's get to it. I managed to make it to the end of the season with United before the buzzer for this challenge went off, ultimately seeing me fail this ambitious challenge. But I will talk about how this season played out regardless. Domestically, we were nothing short of exceptional, and it was really nice to be at a big club. Wins were coming in thick and fast, and it seemed like my multiple season pursuit of Stalin Esbalza was worth it as he managed to provide us 54 goal contributions in 44 games, which is absolutely outstanding. As the calendar ticked into 2032, we put together a 19-game unbeaten run, which ended with us winning 16 games in a row. That meant that we won the Premier League title, which was United's first in 19 years, but we were pushed all the way by Manchester City. But yet again, we were not finished there. As you'd expect with our domination of the Premier League, we also strolled to the FA Cup final as well, even thumping Man City at Wembley in the semis. Newcastle went blow for blow with us in that final, with the game finishing 3-3, but us securing the win on spot kicks thanks to some heroics from our goalkeeper Gregor Kobel, who saved 2 penalties in the shootout, including one from former player Lisandro Martinez. Due to my mistake of not actually checking to see if Manchester United were in the Champions League before taking this job, I have failed this challenge, but I'm going to have one final crack at the Europa League instead. We blasted through the league phase and then the knockout stages, dispatching Braga, Napoli and Celtic on the way to a final with Rennes. But the French side couldn't hold a candle to us in this one as our superstars dominated the game to see us win 3-0 and complete a treble. So after 24 hours of a slog of this challenge and 10 seasons in game, this is how my manager is looking. I now have a 4.5-star reputation along with a 68% win ratio over the span of 400 plus games. Attribute wise, I'd still say we have a way to go, but we've managed in 5 different countries over 10 seasons and won 15 trophies in total, including 2 Europa Leagues. But ultimately, I failed this challenge, but it is one of the most fun saves I've done on FM in a long time, and I'm going to challenge you to see if you can do better. I'm going to post the starting save file for this over on my Patreon. Go and get it, and go and see if you can do better than I did in this particular video under this challenge, because I think if I had one more season, this United team with the talent in it, I think I could have won the Champions League. Let me know what you think of this challenge, if you'd like to see it in other regions, because obviously this one was only focused to Europe. We could try and do that, or if you have any other challenge ideas that you would like to see me attempt, let me know down in that comment section.